Good evening and welcome to another episode of Pegasys Presents. I'm Lauren Stefanelli, Access Coordinator here at Pegasys. And today we've got another theater event to promote coming up in downtown Ithaca at the Kitchen Theater. It is a return engagement by the Civic Ensemble of My Children, My Africa. And with me to discuss it are the two young actors who are the stars of the show. To my immediate right is Jelani, and to my far right is Brianna Ford. And both of you guys are recent IC alums, and you are doing this for the second time. You're the same actors that appeared in it when it was at LACS in August. So thank you very, very much for coming.
Of course, thank you for having us.
And this is a great opportunity for those of you that missed it in August to see it. I'm one of those people that missed it, so I'm kind of excited that I get another chance to watch it.
Yeah.
And for those of you that haven't really seen what this is about, maybe one of you, maybe Jelani, you could start by just giving us a short little snapshot. What is this play about?
Yeah, My Children, My Africa, it's about two students. I play a student myself, and Brianna plays a student. And also Godfrey Simmons plays our teacher. We're set in apartheid-ridden South Africa. And it's a story about dealing with apartheid and discrimination and oppression and how to, whether education versus action, immediate action, which one is the more, I guess, more...
The better mode for change.
Better mode for change, yeah. So it's a very, very relevant to play, very needed discussion to have, I'd say.
And this is the second time you guys have done this.
Yeah.
And so I guess I'll ask you, Brianna, why did you want to come back and do it again?
Doing the show.
Of course, there is the
Jelani.
fact that you've already learned the lines.
I know.
Great.
We're
So
relearning them right now, and it's just brushing up.
Yeah.
And it's so much fun. The playwright's incredible.
Oh.
The play is written so beautifully. To be able to return to that text and to return to this play in our current political climate it's eye-opening in a different way.
What is, I mean, I haven't seen it yet, so what is beautiful about the writing of the play? It seems like a kind of a brutal topic.
It is a brutal topic, but the way it's presented and the way he...
Poetic in a sense, yeah.
Yeah, his device in this play is definitely language, and the whole message of the story is whether or not immediate action or education in the power of words is a better mode for change. So the playwright himself, I think, believes that education in the power of words is Athol Fugard. Great guy. Yeah, so the entire play is talking about how the power of words is a peaceful approach and possibly a better way to
Make change happen.
make change happen.
One key thing that Mr. M says is that words.
Mr.
M is our the
Teacher.
teacher.
The third character who plays the teacher.
By Godfrey Simmons. Yeah. One of his lines, the words are don't scorn words, because words are the only thing that separates us from animals. You know, the fact that we can think with words is just very pertinent to our existence as human beings, and to communicate with words is a key thing that I think is lacking. You'll see, of course, in the play, but it's one thing that needs to happen, but it doesn't happen. There's a block, and that's why...
In this play.
In the play, yes. And
so
the
there's
world,
a part where words break down.
There are a lot of people there. People just don't communicate as much as they should, you know. Have a conversation with one another to change someone, you know.
And the way I understand it, from the little bit of reading that I've done about it, is that Athol Fugard wrote this play in 1985, and apartheid didn't end until 4 or 5 years later. So this was when the outcome of all this was still in doubt, and the very end of apartheid was kind of a scary time.
Yeah.
And so he's writing this without really knowing what's going to happen, or even what's going to happen to him for writing a play like this. Does that come across in his writing, the fact that it is something happening contemporary, not something written long after as a historical piece?
Oh, yeah.
Definitely.
I would definitely say so.
It's very relevant to what's going on in America right now. How his words written 30 years ago for apartheid South Africa is so applicable to what's happening in our country. And
so in what way?
Well, in the way that we all need unity more than ever, and to be able to openly discuss what's in our hearts and what's in our minds in a peaceful environment, and then seeing what we can do about it once we hear both sides and compromise in a sort of sense, I don't know, but
openly discussing is a huge thing because especially now with social media, they didn't have social media back in back in that day, so they had to talk to each other face to face, you know, if they wanted to communicate, and that's something social media. A lot of people hide behind social media, so they use that as a block, as a wall to put up to block off differing views and opposition.
Or a way to be more extreme because you're kind of anonymous.
Yeah, exactly. And I think what Athol wants is communication. Wants people to talk. You know, talk to someone who disagrees with you, because if you talk to them, you'll understand where they're coming from. Maybe they see things in a different light, but you'll come to some kind of agreement, some kind of compromise and unity. You know.
What kind of feedback did you get on the first run of this performance in August when you guys did it over the summer? What kind of audience response or reactions did you get from people?
oh, very
Great.
extreme reactions.
Really, yeah, very. It really affected people in a great way. I remember we had a talk back after every performance, and there was one lady who just started crying and bawling because she felt so many emotions
During the talkback.
During the talkback, and Sarah Chalmers asked her, "Why? Tell us how you feel," and she said, "Full," and just. There's so much we can do as a human race. There's so much that needs to be done, and yeah, she just felt so full of emotion. And that's something as an actor. That's something you long for. You know, someone comes to see you on a show and they leave so affected, and
or inspired.
Inspired, yeah.
Ready to find out what they can do.
Yeah.
I think one of the things that I think is interesting about this play, and mind you, I haven't seen it, but I do know that there's just the three characters. And so obviously you get to know these three characters and their motivations pretty intimately. And when I was in my 20s, I had this experience of, I was guiding bus tours back and forth across the US, and there were a couple nationalities that took these bus tours more than anybody else. And two of them were Israelis and South Africans.
Nice.
And Germans and Americans.
Yeah.
So I always had all these South Africans and Israelis on the bus, and they were always like 18 to 20 years old. And what that meant was that every single one of them was getting conscripted into the army, every one of them. And this was the 80s, and that meant that apartheid was happening. So all these young South African men were, this is like a last fling after high school before they had to go back into the army.
Wow.
And it was like seeing these innocent people that were about to get sucked into the maw of this machine, because of course as an American I'm on the outside of what's happening in their countries, and I'm getting to know them pretty well as people, and just seeing these are just people, these are just kids really, and look what they're going to be a couple years from now once they've gotten indoctrinated into the whole system that they're getting dragged into. So it's kind of like for us to be able to see into this classroom and get to know these young people really well before and as they make certain choices that kind of change them in their lives. We get to see behind the headlines and what's really real in people's hearts. Did it seem that way to you at all?
Oh, 100%.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's written so beautifully that you really, each character has a monologue where it's just them on stage, and it's usually about 2 to 3 pages, maybe actually probably 3 to 5 pages.
It's a lot to memorize.
Yeah, but during those monologues, you get to see that character in their private self, like what they're really thinking and what's driving them.
Yeah.
So you can get an insight into their public self with the other two characters. And so you really get to understand why the character does what they do and who they love and what their everyday life is like. Yeah, it paints the picture beautifully.
Another thing that I got from the blurb is that in addition to the theme of apartheid, there's also the theme of women's rights.
Yes.
Is that correct? And that, in fact, Isabel is brought in to give a speech about women's rights. So that's another group of emancipation that's going on at the same time. How did that affect you?
Oh, it was great. It's the start of the play, too. So it's the both of us in a debate about women's rights, and you get to see Isabel light up, and she's so passionate about everything, but especially women's rights.
Yeah.
But
because
is
she
it
can
your
relate.
job in the debate to be against
Yes.
women's
Yeah,
rights?
well,
Having the audience reaction.
yeah,
It's
yeah.
So you're
great.
like
Tommy's more
barefoot and pregnant lady.
exactly right.
Everyone
So-
loves Isabel right from the get-go.
Yeah, yeah.
She's like, yeah, women.
and then she technically comes to our school, so it's more like, oh, these are my friends, so I'm like having fun with them, I'm like making jokes and having funny things and quirks with certain people, and he's more of
So she's the outsider and the underdog
Yeah,
with this
exactly.
particular debate.
Exactly.
Yeah, which
So
is
it
the first
sort of
time in
turns
her
everything
life.
on its head a little
Yeah.
bit, because in debates about apartheid, then you would be the underdog.
exactly.
And so does the theme play with that a little bit, the theme of the play?
Oh, yeah.
I definitely say so.
Most of the scenes take place in their ground, where I'm a guest and I'm invited,
Yeah.
and I'm the minority, which is the first time Isabel has really been the minority in ever.
Yeah.
So
And it's also tradition versus the modern age, because Mr. M, the problem between Mr. M and Dami, one of the main conflicts, is that there's just this generational divide where Mr. M expects Tommy to just blindly listen to what Mr. M says and what Mr. M wants, and because he's the elder, and that's how things have always gone. But Tommy's more like, well, we're in apartheid, we're oppressed right now, things aren't going too well, and you asked me
We've tried it your way,
we
old
tried it your
man.
way, so let's
Yeah.
try something new, and that's something
Yeah.
that's very,
and this is the point where Mandela's in prison.
yeah, so,
And
it
so
makes
like
a
the
lot
peaceful
of,
way didn't work.
Peaceful
and
way
that's
didn't.
how
that's how Nami feels, and yeah, let's immediate action, no time to wait. That's how he feels.
This is, the author is a white South African author, right? That lives in the U.S. right now? I think it's
Yes, I believe so.
Yeah, some blurb I read sort of said something like that. And it sort of reminded me, talking about the theme of a teacher that believes in the peaceful way towards change. It reminded me of Alan Patton's Cry, the Beloved Country,
Yeah.
the book from the 1948, I guess, about the priest that was, the African priest that was kind of went through this whole story and saw all these injustices, including and tried to be peaceful the whole time. And it seemed like it was a little bit, the Mr. M character was a little bit related to that character in a
Yeah.
way. Did you ever hear of that book?
I've heard of the book, and I'm sure there are many parallels between
Yeah,
him and Mr. M.
there's a made-for-TV movie, I think, with Richard Harris and James Earl Jones playing the preacher.
Oh,
and
wow.
And he just gives this amazing performance as this preacher of somebody who's just, yes, he's living in, I guess, so it's 1940, so it's contemporary then. He's living in 1940 South Africa. So there really isn't at that point any hope of change.
Yeah.
At that time. So really, he's got a son who is rebelling in a violent way, and he's got him who's chosen the peaceful way. So it's a little bit like this play in
Yeah.
that respect. But the pastor chooses the peaceful way all the way through, and despite all the horrible things that go on him, there's a certain really dignity and hope in that, in some kind of a way.
Yeah.
And I wonder if there's any kind of parallels that you see to Mr. M.
Absolutely, yeah, absolutely. One of the main things that I got from that is that there are two different things. There's immediate action, there's education. In this play, both are explored in a sense that they're two opposite things, but the beauty of it, the way they will work perfectly, the way unity happens if those two things happen together. Immediate action to bring
So action
make it-
informed
yes.
by education,
Yes,
not
exactly.
just running around
Not
doing
just
things
running
without
around.
thinking about what you're doing.
Exactly,
Yeah,
exactly. But
exactly.
you need marches. You need people to bring light to the situation.
But you
then
still
you need
need to think
education.
about it
yeah,
and
you
have
need to think about
reasons.
things. You need to know what you're going to be doing for the long-term goals. And I think that is something that is so crucial to what's happening now. Yes, marching is good, but you also have to have the education. You have to have what you're setting, like long-term goals, short-term goals, long-term goals. You have to marry those beautifully together. And I think this play explores that so well.
It's interesting that we should be putting on this play now and thinking about it as something that we can learn from in America.
Yeah.
Because, South Africa spent all this time as the pariah state,
Yeah.
and then when freedom came, and instead of just turning into a bloodbath, they had reconciliation
Yeah.
meetings, and they took the peaceful route, and the whole world looked and said, oh, wow, we didn't
Yeah.
really expect that.
Yeah.
We just thought this was going to be Zimbabwe, and
Yeah.
everybody was going to kill each other, and all the white people are going to leave, and it
Yeah.
was going to be just a ruined economy, blah, blah, blah. And instead, look what happened. People sat down, they talked about it, they took responsibility, they decided to work together. It was like all of a sudden hope for the whole world,
Yeah.
from being the pariah to being hope for the whole world.
Yeah.
And maybe this play is a little bit like that for people in troubled times like we are.
Absolutely.
Yeah, definitely.
Absolutely. We always talk about how the words written 30 years ago in a different country are so pertinent to now and what's happening in America. And we all could learn from the mistakes in the past and what's going on. And yeah, it's so relevant.
Well, so let me ask you, just step away from the play and ask you guys about yourselves for a second. This blurb says you guys both are Ithaca College graduates, 2016.
Yeah.
Are you theater graduates? And could you
Yeah.
tell us where you guys are each going? You want to start?
Oh yeah, we're both BFA acting majors. Well,
Okay.
we're BFA acting majors.
yes.
Graduated in May, and we both just moved to Chicago actually.
Yeah.
Oh, together?
Oh, yeah, we're
in a
dating.
relationship.
Sorry.
Oh, okay.
We're
We've been
that's
dating for
awesome.
4 years.
4.5
4 and a
years.
half years.
Okay, so
yeah.
you're a couple.
Yeah.
Which is another reason why we love doing this show.
Yeah.
It's so easy to have a connection on stage with each other, and this is the first time we've ever really gone to act
Yeah.
together.
But it's also interesting because we're not supposed to. Like in
Yeah.
apartheid South Africa, we're not supposed to have a relationship. We're not supposed to be communicating as closely as we are. But,
Yeah, but a lot of times when you have a couple that's on stage or screen, whether the couple sparks or whether they don't,
Yeah.
really makes a difference
Yeah.
to how the message comes across and how how riveting it is
Yeah.
to watch. So do you find that being a couple, you kind of create more excitement for the audience?
Oh yeah, I think so.
yeah.
Yeah.
Especially
there's
people that
definitely
know
a spark.
us and know that we're a couple, yeah.
But even for the people that don't know that we're a couple, during the talkbacks, they would always. Isabel has a trait of wanting to touch people, but everyone backing away from her, and she always is constantly reaching out to people, and she's always being rejected. And
'Cause
the
we're not
reason for
supposed
that
to
is,
touch.
yeah, I'm a white girl, and if I touch them, it's their fault.
Right,
Yeah.
right.
So having that, I know this spark with Jelani on stage, it's so heartbreaking when we just can't be together. We can't.
Because any other time, any other day, any other age, any other country, they would be happily together, but, or maybe they do end up together. You just never know, right? I don't want to
Yeah.
spoil anything.
So you're going to Chicago, back to you guys.
Yeah,
And
Oh, right now we actually just drove back from Chicago this week.
Yeah.
to start rehearsing for this play.
Yeah.
Okay.
Exactly. My family also lives out here, so we're visiting them as well.
Okay. So you have a crash pad.
Yeah,
pretty
exactly.
much.
Um,
Yeah.
We're doing a sketch comedy show at Second City at the end of March, so that's going to be very
Wait,
fun.
you're
as well.
doing a sketch comedy show?
Yeah.
Yeah.
At Second City in Chicago.
Yeah.
That's what you're going back to do after this.
Yeah, yeah.
Together or separately? Or
Together.
That's crazy.
It's amazing.
Yeah.
I don't know how this keeps
So-
happening, but I hope it does.
Yeah, you're right. Keeps.
Oh, tell me you can give us a taste.
Oh gosh, we don't have anything together though.
Oh yeah. Well, we don't have any lines. I don't have any lines memorized yet because
Yeah.
we're still in
So
the
this is
learning
sketch
process.
comedy with a bunch of other people?
With about three
It's
or four
a
other
group
people.
of 6,
Yeah.
and we're 2 of them. And we're all writing as well.
Yeah.
We're putting in sketches and editing each other's and kind of creating a show together.
Yeah.
And right now we're in the process of writing, so we haven't started getting on our feet with
Yeah.
the material quite yet.
And memorizing things yet. So once we get back, it's going to be hit the ground
So
running.
a
with
couple
that.
years from now, we could see you both on Saturday Night Live.
Yeah.
A lot of Second City people ended up there,
So
right?
many,
Yeah.
So many. Yeah, fingers crossed, right?
And following that, you could be doing comedies together on the big screen.
Yeah.
That
Yeah.
could happen, right?
That's
That's
the dream,
happened
right?
to Saturday Night Live alums too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so do you see yourselves as actors or as comedians or as writers? You're doing all three now.
Yeah.
No, we're kind of dabbling in everything.
Yeah.
But
So this is your time to explore.
yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
And see what like if we find passionate.
And you think Chicago's going to be your home base for a while?
For a bit. We're not quite sure yet because
Yeah.
we just moved in October. So
So 3 or 4 months. So it's like testing the waters, of course. And we might try out New York City. Who knows where it'll take us?
yeah.
Okay, and how do you like Chicago?
Oh, we love it.
Oh.
The Cubs won, and we
Cubs
live
won the
right
World
down the
Series.
street
Yeah.
from Wrigley Field, and it was
You could hear the
incredible.
crowd from your house?
It was
Oh, yeah.
insane. It sounded like a war zone. Everyone was everywhere. People were blowing their
Hell
horns.
So
yeah.
I guess you guys are
Concerts.
going to have to learn to appreciate the Cubs then.
Oh,
aren't you, if
yes.
you want
Go
to
Cubs,
survive
go. Go Cubs, go.
We blasted the theme song
Yeah.
from our New York license plate car.
I know,
We were
yeah,
driving down
exactly.
the street. People are dancing right next to our car.
High-fiving people out the window.
It's amazing.
It's crazy. It
Yeah.
was amazing. Amazing time to be in Chicago.
Bringing everyone together,
Yeah.
which is nice.
Over 100 years. So.
Wow. Well, so that's kind of an exciting trajectory.
Yeah.
And as far as your involvement with Civic Ensemble, how did you get involved with them?
Oh, well, you were the first
wow,
one.
yeah.
I mean, that's not really related to IC.
Yeah, yeah.
No, it's not.
Well, kind of, sorta. I did a show that freshman year of college that was kind of sort of produced by Civic Ensemble. It was called DreamX. It was written by Saviano, who's a professor there and also works closely with the Civic Ensemble. And they saw me in a show there, and they're like, "Hey, let's contact this guy and let's see if we can get him to do something else." So I did a stage reading of Slashes of Light, which also got picked up by the Kitchen Theater, which was done a couple years back. And yeah, we've just been doing things there ever since. And then I got interested in Brianna.
And then, so you got interested through him.
Yeah, well, I would go to all of his shows, and then Godfrey and Sarah would see shows at IC, and they reached out to me to do, what was the first? Oh, the first thing we did was a workshop of
Yeah.
Melanie's production of 2A,
Yeah,
who's
the
the director
director.
of My Children, My Africa. So I actually met Melanie the first time I did anything with Civic Ensemble as well. And then we did some children's theater with the Tin Can Fantasy Factory
Yeah.
over that summer. And then I did a Christmas Commedia dell'arte piece with them last winter.
And Godfrey and
yeah.
Sarah have just been mentors. Like they've been such
Yeah, they're role
amazing
models.
group of role models to have.
Well, what have you learned from your experience then?
Just how theater can change and how we need theater in life. You know, we need to escape reality. We need to be informed of what's happening. We need to see what can happen if something doesn't happen.
In
you
a
know?
safe place.
In a safe
Yeah,
place.
exactly.
Yeah. And just the bond you feel as a theater goer with all the audience members. You're all there soaking in the art that's happening in front of you. You bring in your past experiences and your past life, and you just like zone in on, and you see this beautiful art. And I love theater. Yeah.
Well, I love theater too, but of course I'm always on the other side. I'm in the audience.
Yeah.
I always wonder what it feels like for the people that are performing. What do they get? Do they really? I mean, they always say they get something from the audience. You really get something from the audience?
Yeah.
yeah.
Every show is different.
Oh, yeah. I don't know how to quite describe it, but
It's
an
not just
energy.
whether they clap. It's
No.
actually their presence
Yeah.
there gives you something.
It's an energy. It's you can tell when eyes are looking at you intensely and people are listening to what you're saying, and also being a storyteller. You know, just telling a story, and you can tell when people are being perceptive.
Yeah.
And
It's fun for audience members to see themselves in you.
Yeah.
I think that's one of my favorite qualities of acting on stage, and especially with My Children, My Africa, we got such a great feedback from that, and for people to say, I really related to your character when this happened, or this made me feel sad when this happened, and
So these are all things you got from the talkbacks.
yeah.
So the talkbacks really gave you something, and
Oh,
it
yeah.
kind of helped you do a better job.
Yeah.
I just wonder what about the talkbacks and whether they had a purpose, and that sounds like they really do.
oh yeah,
Oh, yeah.
absolutely.
For us, it helps us see the play through different
Yeah.
eyes, and we forget things that we learned when we first read the play or first did the scene.
Right, because you're so familiar with it, and here
Yeah.
you've got a group of people that are having
Never
a
seen it
very
before.
first impression.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, we're getting near the end of our time, and I promised you, since this is an upcoming event, that you'd each get a chance to do a pitch. And that is your camera over there, and I'll let you start, Brianna,
Oh,
since
wow.
you're the
Oh,
girl.
sorry.
And ladies first. And so this is your camera. Tell
Okay.
everybody why they should come to the play.
Well, come to see My Children, My Africa. It's something that everyone can relate to. It's something that's very important to see right now, and hopefully it'll bring everyone together. Yeah.
All right, so your turn, Jelani.
Yeah, come see My Children of Africa. It's excruciatingly relevant for this time. It's very much, it'll make you laugh, it'll make you cry, it'll make you angry, it'll make you sad, it'll make you nervous. But in the end, everyone who's seen it has come out with something, and that's what we hope for as actors and storytellers, is to leave the audience with something. So we'll give you something, hopefully you take it and come and see it.
Oh, thank you so much. Those were really good insights. And for all of you out there, let me just read the times. My Children, My Africa, back by popular demand, February 16th through 18th, Thursday, Friday, and Saturday at 7:30 p.m., Saturday at 2 p.m., so there's a matinee at the Kitchen Theater. And it also says here that free tickets will be available at the venue on the day of this performance, so I think that it's very important to the civic ensemble that nobody be excluded from coming to a play because of inability to pay. So if you think that you can't go and you can't pay the fee, then you should go to the day of the performance, and you will have an opportunity to get free tickets if you need them. And we'll put the information about the dates and times up again at the end of the program. Thanks, Brianna and Jelani, very much for being my
Thank
guest.
you.
I learned a lot from talking to you about what goes on the other side of the curtain. Thanks again. And thanks all of you for being with us. Good night.